This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, I'd like to call the April 12th meeting of the Easthampton Historical Commission to order. First order of business. Let's see. Public speak. Anybody have anything to say outside of the topics on the agenda? No. Okay, we're going to move up the town clock restoration to item number 2, or number 3. There's no public speak.
Okay.
And, Dan?
Okay, so I sent you the documents. This started at the CPA level when the church came to us and presented the pictures you see there of the deterioration of the clock, which led us to, we actually own the clock. We got legal, I'm sorry, that means somebody's at my door at home. I have to turn my phone off. Anyway, the deterioration of the clock was presented to us, and we decided we would find out, do we really own the clock? To make a long story short, we came up with a legal review that said that we did own the clock. The city owns the clock. We have an agreement now, which our legal team, the city attorney, and the mayor approved between the church. We own the clock. The clock includes the mechanics that run it, the bell striker, and on the structure, the face of the clock, including the surrounding area of the clock. That's all owned by the city. Because of that, that takes what's known as the anti-aid amendment out of the equation. Now, what does that mean? We eventually would like to have CPA funding for this clock. In order to have CPA funding, if you have a church and you're going to give them money to do something you feel is significant for the town, you have to prove that there's a public interest, all that. But if we own the clock, we're not giving money to the church, we're fixing our own clock, which is important. Now, beyond that, it's historical. So use CPA funds, we have to make sure that we're fixing something historical, and therefore we can use the funds. The one reason I'm involved in this is because it scared me seeing these pictures and how bad the clock is. What I am here to tell you is that maintenance is the biggest issue. The mayor and I feel that moving forward, this clock has to last. It can't end up like this again. If the clock is using what I call non-biodegradable, the kind of acrylic they might use, it's black, thick acrylic, it's not thick wood, but it's the same as what's up there. You'll see it from the ground, it'll look like that. But it'll last a long time. The bezel around it will be non-biodegradable material. And the clock works. The mechanics that run the clock and the striker, all of that is modern, digital, and will operate. They think one of the companies that's part of the scope of work I showed you said it'd be accurate within seconds, yearly. So the city residents will see the time correctly. But the main thing is to make sure that we don't have to face the fact that city budgets, they fluctuate depending on who the mayor is and depending on what our resources are. Maintenance down the road, the reason we got here is deferred maintenance, I believe, and we can't have that again. So the mayor and I both feel that we need to keep this as a modern facility. Now, I claim that history is more than just the structure. The clock has been in the city forever, and we'd like it to continue to be there. To use CPA funds, we need your help. We need you to approve it from that. The scope of work I showed you is a sample. It is what we have before the city council. This week we will get a free cash thank you for the mayor of $30,000 for the design, which is an architect coming up with the RFP to have the clock fixed. That design will tell us how much the whole thing will cost. It could be in the neighborhood of $200,000 because there's a lot to be done. But this is a one-time expense that I'm hopeful we will not have to look at. It costs almost $10,000 today to rent a lift to get up to the clock. Oh, damn it, I'm sorry. So I really feel that it's important for us for you to agree that historically this can happen, like it is. It's of course, if we could, and the other thing, I heard this, I think I heard it from John, that the original clockworks that are in there, I'd certainly ask the church to put them in under glass and in a museum so that we could show it. I'm sorry to turn off my phone. I apologize. So that's about it. I showed you the pictures. I hope you saw them. John's been on board with this for a while. So.
Yeah, we were up there in 2009.
Sounds about right.
Probably hasn't gotten any better since then.
Right.
No, one of the pictures, which is scary, is the basil is falling off, and I'm real worried that that's going to fall down on somebody.
Yeah.
So,
I guess, from our point of view, I mean, as far as material-wise, I mean, we have to follow certain guidelines. Is correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly what those are at this point, so I'll have to research that and make sure that, because they do have substitute materials for different things, but it's
The Secretary of the Interior.
National Parks.
Yeah, guidelines for historic preservation. And that's under the CPA legislation from the state that requires CPA to follow those guidelines.
I'm of the belief that we have some, at the CPA level, we have the ability to have some, I'm looking for a word, leeway on that, if we feel the historic nature of the clock is important. I know that other clocks have been repaired like this, because this company's doing it all the time.
Right.
So there's precedence for that.
We had also approved the other material for the church roof a while ago. When they replaced it,
shingles,
yeah, they weren't,
slate.
instead of slate, they replaced it with other material.
And that wasn't funded with CPA funds.
No,
so-
that was church.
The church funded that on their own. But
We don't have
even
to
if
be
they-
strict like
well,
that.
even if they had been funded with CPA funds, at the time their engineers were saying that the slate was causing the roof to collapse, and going with the composite material lightened the roof enough, which was why the case was being made for those materials. So there was a reason, it going back to another slate roof would have caused the whole building to collapse and jeopardize the building.
So that seems like an analog to what we're talking about with the bell. To me, if we were told, well, you have to use slate on the roof, and we knew it would make it collapse, it would surely be a poor use of taxpayer funds to do that. And it would be a poor choice to not fix the roof. I think that it's a mistake to think that we should go with wood, copper, those fallible, short-lived materials that have proven over the years that they don't have longevity. And to me, the historic nature of the clock isn't in the materials that it's made of, or whether it's an electronic striker or what. It's in the visage, the way it aesthetically affects the town, the downtown.
Mhm.
It's in its function as a four-sided clock, so you can look and tell what time it is, and the bell. And as long as those things function, I think the best materials would be the longest lived and most affordable.
And I think that the word I was looking for is discretion. If the Historic Commission feels comfortable with this, CPA's discretion would suggest, and I actually saw it on the Coalition's website, if the Historic Commission is fine with this, then where we would have a problem at the CPA level is the residents who would say, how come you're fixing that clock? Historic Commission says that this is a good thing to do for the city. It's not owned by the church, it's owned by the city. So those two things, to me, give the CPA good leeway to pay for the clock. And to be honest with you, I know the city's budget, and the mayor will tell you, there's a lot of places for the city's money right now. We have huge expenses. And CPA can only be used for these kinds of things. So this is the best place to get the funds. I guess what I'm saying is that's why I'm looking at this. I don't know why I've become so enraptured with this clock, but I have. And I really drive by it every day, and I'd like to see it done before I leave the council. So I'm really feeling like if the CPA committee doesn't fund this, it may not get done. So I need your help. So I love what John just said, because it's the visage, it's a great term. It's what we see. If you're seeing the clock as you see it now, difference if it's made out of acrylic or if it's made out of wood. If it's made out of wood, you're gonna have to go up and paint it, you're gonna have to go up and repair it. So I just know that that's not gonna happen down the road. And to be frank, I won't vote for a wooden replacement of the clock. At the CPA level, at the council level, I'll never do that. That's not fiscally responsible, in my opinion, you know? Do I say anything more? Nicole?
I mean, the $30,000 for the design, I think is important to all the points that were brought up here, as far as what are acceptable substitutes, or what exactly, like, how broken is it, what is broken, Dan and I were just talking about the structure that we don't own, like, is that structurally secure? You know, yes, we can fix the clock, but, you know, we can't fix a big part of the church for the clock and that. And to put the money into this design of $30,000 too, is the fact is there is town-owned or city-owned material in the middle of a church. So if it were to fall, we have a design study or whatnot to, you know, we can take care of our part of the liability is where we're at.
In other words, yes, if the clock falls down now, we own it now. We've proven we own it. So that's another thing I didn't even think of. If something falls off the clock right now. So we gotta get it fixed soon.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, and the design answers a lot of those, you know, the questions, and the question around historical nature, and, you know, the argument and the replacement of, you know, and the view, and I get it. It's not something I have expertise to weigh into it. Rather know what we're dealing with and then take it from there. To see what can, see the architect, right? It's an architect that does it.
Yeah, well, we put out an RFP for an architect to come in and give us the work. The scope of work would include structural, looking at how much it would cost to get a general contractor in to get us up there, how much it would cost to have an electrical company do the electrical, because the bell people, the clock people just fix the clock. They don't deal with the structures or the electrical. There's general contracting in addition to just replacing the clock. But I put in that I am absolutely certain that it has to have the same historic look that was top line in the scope of work. Has to have that. So any company that would come in and say, here's what we'll do. The Verdant company that gave us that's one clock company. I have to look at this clock and, yeah, it looks the same. Has to be there.
Yeah.
So it's visage, that's a return, steel, versus actual material. So that's your choice.
So will the design study compare the cost to replace it in kind versus replacing it with new materials?
That hasn't been written yet. If you would like that as part of your judgment, I guess we could put that in. But if we tried to replace it with in kind, was that what your term with regard to historic actual materials?
Whatever, I mean.
If that's the case, I don't know if I want to. I'd have to decide whether I want that comparison, because the point is I don't want to see the clock done with wood. I just don't.
I don't think that the CPA committee can satisfy the due diligence of complying with the Secretary's guidelines for historic preservation without looking at what it costs to do, or what it would take to replace it in kind.
You're talking about the mechanics too, or just
the whole thing, what it would be to do it historically accurate and what it would be to do it with the proposal that you would like to see it, because that's how you can look at the trade-offs. Like, if all new internals is going to be more expensive than, repairing what's there, then you'd want to know that. Or conversely, if the materials that are not, trying to do in kind, you can't get those materials anymore, that leads to the decision that we need to replace it with modern materials.
I would think that could possibly be added to the architect's scope of work, to look at in-kind materials. But if in-kind materials ended up being cheaper, I would vote against it.
Seems like the thing we should really ask for, I would ask for cost as well, but it's longevity. We should compare the in-kind materials longevity versus the new materials longevity. Because really, what we want is the one with the most longevity and the least maintenance. So if that happens to be mahogany, great, fantastic, a win. Probably not, but if it was, that's what we'd want.
I would be happy to add that to the scope of work if the Historic Commission would like that. But to me, I just don't doubt that repairing a 1946 clock mechanism is going to be fiscally responsible. I don't even know if they can fix it.
Well, I don't disagree with you at all. Better to have it than to have the comparison then goes to your point, right? That to preserve the four-sided clock and whatnot, and to do that in kind is not fiscally feasible, or parts aren't available, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
To have that side by side, and if the outcome is the same, looking at the clock, I think that helps prove your point of why, and I think it also gives those on the CPA and the Historical Commission comfort that they looked at it both ways. Comfort, I just can't think of it. I think I'm thinking about comfort more than...
We've done due diligence.
Yeah, due diligence, thank you. Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. My only concern is that it becomes a financial decision rather than it is a financial decision long term. But in the short term, yeah, it's $30,000 cheaper to use mahogany versus acrylic. I'd still have a problem.
I think you're going to see that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't even know, is it mahogany that's there now, but what's the wood that's
probably
there?
not. You're not going to find it.
You use it.
I did. I just threw it out.
He likes mahogany.
Yeah, and I am willing to bet good money to anybody that those old materials would not outlive the new ones. But again, point is, I'm not the expert. I would ask the expert.
Get it in writing, right? And
All right, I'm happy to do that. It makes the Historic Commission's decision easier. I think, though, what you could say is, in either you want the comparison, but leave it up to the CPA to decide which way to go, or
It should be the historic consultant who's making the.
it's going to be the
that
architect
makes
we
it.
hire. We're
Well,
not going.
right, but it's if they're an architect, they should be
Yeah,
someone
they'll be-
who knows the historic.
right, they're going to look at the historical context.
They shouldn't just be someone who is building.
No, the guy I'm
glass
thinking. Well, there's a
box
bunch of
house.
architects out there that do clock
Right.
renovations, so they must have to do this.
Right,
I don't
so
know.
going off their expertise lends credibility to their recommendations.
Okay. All right. As I said, I wanted to smooth the way for CPA coming forward, but you don't have to make a decision tonight. We will get that design through the council. It'll take a few months before we get the RFP out there to see what happens. And then probably a month or two. It's going to be a while before we get this to the point where we know what the decision is going to be, so then you can make the decision. Because how it's eventually funded, or where we go to, is a ways off, and that'll be determined by the Historic Commission's final decision.
Right. Well, I'm definitely in favor of getting it all repaired. I just want to make sure we dot all the i's and cross the t's and make sure we're not breaking any of the rules.
Well, okay.
You know,
One other thing before I forget, just maybe to put the idea in people's heads, I wonder if, I'd like to assume this goes through, and we'll get the clock repaired, I wonder if it would be worth it to have some little dedication or something that's an opportunity to sort of rebrand it as well as the town clock. It's not the church clock,
Well, we are a city.
town.
City.
Oh, sorry, city clock, sorry. Right, okay, my bad. But you said, you even say town.
Well, everybody's been saying the town clock.
The city
That's
clock,
what
but
it's
it would be
been
a
called.
chance, it would be a chance to make sure everybody understands that it's not the churches and that the town owns it,
Okay.
the city owns it.
Okay, John.
Get a nice plaque on that.
And I would
Nice to be very
like
clear,
to see
Yeah.
the old works kept, museum ones.
Yeah.
Why not?
I think we'd all like them, we've all talked about them being in
I don't think the
Display
church will
cases.
object to putting a little corner of their...
From the contacts I made back in 2009, talked to one guy, he showed him pictures of the clock, and he said it was worth quite a bit.
Yeah.
So,
it's a unique
Yeah.
and rare.
You mean
It's very cool.
the mechanics or
Yes.
the actual
Yeah.
faces?
And of course, you know.
Not the
he said
faces.
They drilled the electric box on the outside,
Yeah, they
which is
did,
not
yeah.
the best thing to do.
Which is another thing, that if it came down, then it could be restored more to that condition.
Right.
That's a historic, you know what? I mean, I wonder how that might change things.
Well,
If it's a historical restoration of the mechanics, but not up there as a functioning part, but down, I mean, you know, I'm sorry. It just occurs to me, that's sort of like a little technical
There's
fine line there.
Probably more questions.
I wonder if
we're gonna
anybody's
come
ever
up with
done that.
before we get all the
Yeah, if you're gonna
answers.
spend the time and effort and money to restore it, you might as well restore it and have it functional.
Oh, not if it's gonna break down in another 2, 3,
Yeah.
5, 7
Problem
I
is,
years.
just
if it was
don't see a
functional, you
clock
would
of
have to
that
have
kind of
somebody
mechanics.
operate it pretty much.
Yeah, you'd
like
fill the
couple
box of
days or
rocks
something.
and stuff, you know?
Well, there, yeah.
Well, the
Just
other
on
thing is,
procedure, so, I mean, the RFP's not written, it will be, it goes out and all of that. So then, when we get the report, it comes back here and to CPA?
no, it comes to you and us because it's it's financed through the mayor's office and free cash. Let's say we get an estimate. Okay, first of all, we get the comparison. The comparison goes to them, this is what it's gonna cost. We recommend this,
Okay.
you and I, because we want to see the clock done a
Right.
certain way to reduce maintenance. Then it goes to CPA once we decide which cost is the way we want to do it. How you and I want to see it funded, whether it's CPA or some other fund, that's last. That's after the Historic Commission says, okay, we got the word. The one thing I want to bring up is the bell. They stopped using the bell because it's going to destroy the steeple. So even if we were to repair that big arm and the rope that makes it work,
Wouldn't wanna use it.
they don't want to use it because it's going to destroy the steeple. So that's an example of what you're going to find from the architect.
I guess I would just say,
Do we own the bill?
if CPA funding's taken out of this, then the city can do whatever they want.
We know that, but the mayor has a lot of places for her funds.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, procedurally, the only reason why it has to comply with the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines is because it's getting CPA funding.
From the historical bucket of money, you're saying?
Correct. If it was funded through any other method, it doesn't have to comply because it's not it's not listed on the state or national register of historic places. There's no requirements for us to follow.
We just want us to have that CPA option. We want the mayor to have that option because how we end up funding is, the CPA has funds, but I think historically it is a good CPA project. And as I said, I think we have discretion depending on what the Historic Commission comes up with. Your decision really impacts whether CPA funds can be used. So we will get that comparison and we'll get it done so that you can make a final decision. And I'm realizing now that we have a long way to go. We have to have the architect study it, we have to have all that done. Once we get the estimate back, we're going to ask the architect, the designer, to give us an estimate of cost A and B, or can we do this? You know, if they say they don't recommend it or whatever, then we've done our due diligence. I think that's a proper way to go. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry I have to run.
Yes, I will. Ask about that. Happy
This
birthday.
guy is in West Springfield. You may want to talk to him.
Who is it?
If you want to take a picture of that or whatever. I can email it to you.
Why don't you email me a picture?
Yeah, he was here for, behind Manchester's, the barn that was there.
Oh, yeah?
He's from West Springfield, so he seemed like he was a pretty good guy. He's into the historical stuff, and he gave me some good advice on that.
He was really good.
Yeah, Al Nardi.
All right.
Yeah, he was. He was.
Had the kind of eye that we would have if we were doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, but he was on the West Springfield Historical Commission too. So.
Well, I'm happy to get anybody's opinion as long as I don't have to pay for it.
Right.
I don't want to spend CPA
Oh, yeah.
funds paying for something that I am kind of opposed to doing, repairing a clock's old clockworks that's
Yeah.
100 years old, well, 80 years old.
I think we just got to lean on the fact, I mean, first of all, as long as we can just do whatever the cross the I's, the
That's-
T's, dot the I's, and make it
Yeah.
pass.
Yeah, that's the thing, because they do accept some substitute materials, and there's certain, there's little
And
flexibility
surely
there
it holds a
that's
lot
not-
of sway that, like, look, you can't strike the bell and you can't rock the bell, so restoring all the historical striker and rocking arms doesn't make any sense. It's a danger to people. You can't do that.
If you see it in the pictures, if you look at the pictures, that
It's
old mechanics,
bad shape.
it's really old. I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
No, the mechanics itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 1854 or something.
I thought it was 1946.
No,
it's
the
older.
mechanics itself,
Yeah,
the
much
original
older.
mechanics are
Very old, yeah.
very, very old.
Well,
That's the original clock that was there.
I want it to function. I think
I want it to function and I want it to last. Because, I mean, I remember us going through this before. Remember
Yeah.
Harry and the whole, I mean, that was Harry's hill to die on was this clock. And that's
if it
because it's
wasn't for
come around
Harry,
and
I
around
wouldn't be
and
here.
around.
He brought it up and I went into it. Oh my God, look
And
at
this
this
is
mess.
my point, is that because it keeps coming around like a merry-go-round, because at the moment, it's made of materials that require frequent maintenance.
Well, I mean, it's just, when it was last restored, sort of, they really didn't restore it, they just kind of cleaned it up.
Well, that too.
Well, we spent $35,000 in 2008 to do what? And it stopped working again.
Yeah, exactly.
And somebody told me it's $10,000 to rent the equipment to get up there.
Right.
So, oh my God, we're going to do that 10 years from now. It's going to be a lot more than that.
I'm
Well,
with you in that.
I'm with all for using current materials.
Yeah, I feel very confident that we wouldn't have the money one day. You know, that's what would happen. Things would be good for a while, and then some year, a pandemic, or who knows what, and then it's like, oh, it's such a shame. It fell down, and we didn't have the money.
You know, it's just kind of, the CPA thing is kind of strange in the sense that they'll
Well, where
give
I
money
dis-
to
where I
build housing,
disagree with-
which is brand new.
Well, and we haven't spent much historical. The CPA hasn't done a lot of historical. work.
Well, we're doing the whole town.
Well, that's a big one. That's a
whole
great
town
one.
hall.
But I mean,
here's the thing.
numerically.
I think we have discretion in that we won't get complaints. The Interior Department doesn't have regulations. They're not going to come back and slap our hands and fine us or anything. It's being careful, but I think we have the discretion in that the residents are the ones who would complain, or you guys would complain. I don't want that. I want you guys to be happy with it. So, all right, thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you. We'll definitely get hot on this one, so
Yeah.
we'll give you some good information. I'd like to see the text of the CPA, you know, what the rules are for that. It's just, you know, do you have access to that? Something you can get?
I think if you ask for something specific, I can provide it. I'm trying to think of what that would be. Like, are you saying that, because I think it's on the town website for the.
Well, it must have the guidelines,
Yeah,
you know?
I'm pretty sure it does, and I think I've seen it recently online.
I mean, I'm looking at the, I can actually, this is 135 pages of.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I was going to say is, like, if you had a specific.
Well, no, I mean, you know, as far as how historical money can be spent, you know, I mean, if it has to follow these, which I'm assuming these are the guidelines right here. This is Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation and Illustrated Guidelines for Rehabilitating Historic Buildings.
See, here's the thing, though. This is the thing that I think is the thing I've been feeling is we have historic buildings and we have historic renovation or preservation, right? But I don't think it's anything is specific, unless it's on the historic registry, which it's not, about you having to do a historic preservation just because it's a historic building.
But can you use CPA funds?
Well, that's the
other
question,
part,
right?
you know?
And my understanding, that's the thing, is I think
I think that's where
There's
Jamie's
a gray
coming
area.
from, where it's
Well,
kind of like you got to do this.
yeah,
you know.
and you know, and that's the thing I worry about though. It's like the shingles to me. It's like, well, if the slate, what if they said like, no, you can only use slate
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
the roof? Then what would you say? Like, oh, well, okay, we'll put slate on and have it fall down,
I think we need.
or we won't fix the roof. Which one would you do?
You know, the printed guidelines are 20-something years old already too,
Yeah.
and you know, but it almost sounds like for most things that you can't really change the look. I mean,
Right, which is the thing we wouldn't want to do. That would be the most, the thing I would be the most hardline about is, yeah, we don't want to change the looks, not at all.
Let's see. Distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques are examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property shall be preserved.
We're not recreating the
Deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced.
I'm not sure where on here you are, but I know I looked through it pretty good, and it looked. I think it's a great opportunity
See,
to.
okay, so guideline number 6 says deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced.
Where are you? Which document are you on?
Guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings.
Oh, you're on the. I see.
Secretary of Interior.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. Well, anyways, let me read this paragraph.
Okay, yeah. Go.
Deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced where the severity of the deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, which could be like the clock face.
Yeah.
The new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and wherever possible, materials.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's because it wouldn't benefit us. We'd be shooting ourselves in the foot to be
No, I understand.
so strict
I'm
about it.
totally
I think
sympathetic.
we're all in
However, you know,
agreement.
if
Yeah,
you're
we just have to figure out.
if you're handcuffed, you're handcuffed.
Yeah,
you know,
well, and that's where, yeah.
Although we may not be, because, I mean, okay, if, and this is where the cost comparison comes in handy, because if they say like, well, doing this with original materials is gonna be $100,000, and this is only, you know, doing with new materials is only $50,000.
Mhm.
So, well, we can't afford that, but we can afford this, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, I hope, I mean, you know,
I
maybe
mean,
it's
you know,
all a
like I
non-issue.
said, I think you know, we probably need to speak to somebody that does this more often.
I was a little disappointed we didn't get, because that's the one thing that had come up was like, hey, are there other towns that have done this? And I thought we were going to get some information
I
on
think,
that.
well, it's, you know, number one, talk to maybe some of those people, talk to some of the clock people. Like I said,
How
I
about the clock on the church in Northampton? Did they do that?
have no idea which one you're talking about.
On the,
The Main Street
yeah.
church, the main clock. in the
Unity, right?
center of,
It's right next to the
Northampton.
courthouse.
Courthouse.
What's that one called?
Do you ever go to Northampton?
Never pay attention.
Here,
So
I'll bring
much
up a
that it's
picture
like-
of it. Stone building. Think stone building.
Next to the courthouse,
Yeah.
or next to town hall, city hall.
No, courthouse.
Oh, that church, yeah.
I mean, that's the main clock in Northampton, other than now the Silverscapes just changed.
Okay.
I think they went through something like this.
Yeah. And if we could find out who, they might be able to answer the questions.
Okay. Well, anyways, I think we need to review all this stuff just to make sure that we're in the, you know, we're not outside of where we should be. We don't need backlash.
No.
And you know, frankly, even if they do the same type of thing that they're doing with City Hall, they're raising money from outside sources too, you know. If it came down to that, you know.
Yeah.
We'll use all new materials and whatnot.
Yeah.
Do it
And-
as a,
I know sitting on the CPA, one of the things we think about though is how often can you go and touch somebody, right? Like,
Oh, yeah,
you-
absolutely.
when you're doing a big ask for town hall
Like
and you're doing a big
like
ask for the
anything, you know.
school and then you're like another big ask.
Town hall's already been, what, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, but we got 4 or 5
4
more
or
to
5
go.
years, where are, no,
No, as far as like
It's-
raising money and all that.
more like 10 at this point.
Well,
I don't think it's
depends
been that
when you
long.
start the clock, 'cause
I don't know.
it came up to CPA about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. When they started the big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been, it's a city building, so. Anyways, we don't need to beat this horse to death, do we?
No,
I
I would be
think
happy
we
not
already
to.
have.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, like I said, I would rather err on the side of caution, especially right now, instead of saying, oh yeah, knock yourself out, let's look into this.
That's great,
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to get it done, absolutely. But, okay, approval of minutes.
I move we approve the minutes.
I second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Take some
Unanimous.
Does, okay. We start at 6:35.
Yeah, 6:35.
Hopefully I brought a pen. Oh, God. Last few weeks, the whole month of March was totally insane. I was a listener last week for a couple of days. And it feels like this month's half over.
I know.
So it's going to be May before you know it.
Stop, Mike, stop. It's already going too fast.
Okay, minutes approved. Correspondent, I got the envelope at home. It's another Pioneer Valley Planning, must be state money or something like that, and they're asking for our approval. It's a apartment building that was built like in 1987. So we'll sign off on that and send it back to Jamie do it. 2 East Street.
Yay!
Yay. I don't know total, I guess they want to tear it down.
Have they applied for the permit?
I don't think so.
Well, he does, he wants to tear it down.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see
You
it
can't
go.
save it. It's well beyond. So we're talking about
Why
the
would you
Oxbow,
want
right?
to?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it was funny because I was talking to Jamie and I was down at the planning department last week and I'm like, we got to, no, I don't think anybody, I think Beverly will want to see that town.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
Well, it's kind of like the hurry and
roof's
scurry.
gone. The roof's falling up.
I know, it's time for these buildings to go because they're not renovatable and they need to
Do you
be.
know what he wants to do? Have you read it? Have you read his proposal?
I have not.
He wants to take the building down and build a 30 by 50-foot building. He went up East Street and looked at other buildings. He wants to make it look like the Cudgel Barn.
Okay.
And he would house a couple of vans there for industrial rescue
Oh,
service.
Yeah, he wants the training or something like that.
Well, mainly there'd be 2 vans there that would go out early in the morning
Yep.
to industrial sites with EMTs on them. And they would be there for the day and come back around 4 o'clock and the vans would go into the barn. And eventually he would have 1 or 2 people working there. And he's not gonna, when they did the survey, his property line comes through the fence that my neighbor has. It's been there over 20 years and through some of my arborvitae. It's not gonna take down any trees except the one that's leaning against the building. And, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay,
I know, right? Yeah, that and the hurry scurry. It's like things are really happening.
Yeah, well, Curry's gone.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, how long did that take? But finally, right? I think we should have popped some champagne.
20 years. that this
Yeah,
building should have
yeah. Well, and it's, these are, we're talking about the gateway to Easthampton over there by the Oxbow. That's a gateway. And the other hurry scurry was downtown. It's like, those are not a good look, so to speak.
Night, everyone.
Night, thanks.
Thank you.
I need to get going. as well. Sorry to,
You all right?
I don't know where we are on the agenda.
2 East Street.
2 East Street. Can I skip down just real brief
Yes, whatever you
to
want
the Northampton Canal?
to. Okay, yep.
So we got from PVPC the list of, so they did the initial archaeological survey, they sent that to the state. The state reviewed it, sent it back with some edits and things. I think that's being resent. But they're also going to be continuing to do some inventory work. And there's 4 features in Easthampton that they want to continue to do the more in-depth inventory report on. And so I told them to go ahead because they needed a quick answer.
Sure.
I don't assume that anyone here would have a problem with that. The funding, it's still within the scope of the original contract with PVPC, because the original contract always said pending how the funding actually, like how much the consultant actually needs to do the initial work. There'll be additional archaeological surveys or inventory forms completed. And the CPA had set aside $15,000 or granted $15,000. So it doesn't need additional appropriations. It's all within that original scope.
Super.
And so
Yeah, that's good.
it'd be,
What are they looking at?
so they're looking at the Canal Prism, which is Canal Prism 75, which is apparently 12 to 13 Oak Ridge Circle.
Okay.
The Sawmill Brook Culvert at West Street, the Bassett Brook Culvert, where the West Street Bridge is kind of built on it.
Yeah.
The Canal Prism 77 and 78 between Northampton Street and Highland Ave. So essentially,
Okay.
this section from the Clap Tavern to Highland Ave, so it'll go through where the Tasty Top, or it's on the border where the Tasty Top
Right.
development is going to be, but also the properties that before that and the properties after that. And then looking at Canal Prism 80, which is O'Neill Street to like Northampton line, and then continuing into Northampton.
Yeah, nice.
That's great.
These projects will turn out fairly well.
Yeah, this is a great one.
Yeah.
Under budget.
And
I mean,
Under budget.
Well,
So far.
they're doing
Don't jinx it.
we're doing more with the budget that was originally granted as opposed to every other project that hit huge amounts of inflation because the projects all required construction materials, and this one's mostly just labor. Labor costs haven't gone up as much as construction costs, so we're able to do more with the same amount of money.
That was good. I mean, you know, and I was reading the original report that we, were reading for mistakes and whatnot. And when I was reading it, I tied together Paula and Wally's speech their last meeting
Yeah.
Oh.
with the book.
It is. Click.
Because, well, it mentions that the canal was one of the reasons that Samuel Williston was able to make the buttons and move them, to different places. So all of a sudden it clicked. I'm going like, oh, okay.
Oh, that's
Not
what they were
necessarily-
talking about.
Yeah, I don't necessarily believe there's anything down by Tasty Top, but that
Some of the
property,
buttons
but
might
who
have
knows,
fallen
right?
off the.
I was just thinking it
railroad.
might have been, maybe it was a barge that
Right.
dumped over.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
Or,
I mean, it's just-
or a railroad car that
Yeah.
dumped over.
Yeah.
Somebody just asked me.
You weren't here for that, right?
You told me about it.
I did tell you about it, yeah.
Somebody just asked me if they've done an archaeological study at the back of the Tasty Top.
Well, I mean, it's just, the canal is on the border of that property, right?
So they won't, they have not, and I don't believe that they would be required to. It's typically not something that, for, I think, I can't speak to that, but I don't think that we would ever, the city would require it, the state could require it if there was reason to believe that important archaeological evidence east from there, so like, if we had reason to believe that there was like a Native American burial ground or something like that, and you wouldn't do an archaeological
Yeah, that's
dig,
what I would do.
You would just do
Yeah.
you would do an archaeological survey, and if you found that it was a burial ground, you stop.
Touch it.
Well, maybe.
But they did like an archaeological survey at the proposed rotary in Easthampton.
Right.
And as part of that, when you do the archaeological dig, you actually end up removing all the archaeological artifacts as you find them. You document where it was and you remove it. So you're not like, oh, here we found this arrowhead, and then you put it back and rebury it. No. So.
Yeah, I think the area down by the Oxbow was the one that seemed the most interesting, I think, we remember, because I was all hyped about the archaeology, and then, of course, that's when it's like, and it wasn't even Native American burials they were talking about. They were just like, oh, well, you're talking about where the DRA put the thing? That's a cemetery, right? Yeah. They're like, well, we're not digging up a cemetery. Like, oh, yeah, of course.
So I'm gonna get going, because I have a class at 7:30 that I need to get to.
Yep, thank you for,
But if there's anything else that there was
they're
conversation
doing
about,
further, what's the word again that they're doing?
further inventory.
Inventories.
I had a question from someone, you know, the guy who just got the award for saving the guy down
Yes.
downtown. He owns a house across the street, and he approached me after the last failed Duncan meeting. He said he's been restoring that house, and he's come across evidence where that house may be historical.
Okay.
And it's not, I looked it up on our records here, and it's not really been, the area was surveyed as a historic
Yeah.
area, but that particular house was not surveyed.
Okay. So we would need to, I mean, either us or the property owner would need to probably start by doing an inventory, getting that property listed on the register, state register. We can.
It's listed as part of the group.
Well,
Right.
Are you talking about 5? What house you talking about?
130,
Oh.
can you bring up
Sure.
the street?
Yeah.
It's 2 houses before the new trailhead. Croak's old house.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
130
Crook's old house. Yeah, that's an
Yeah.
old house.
Yeah. And he said, you know, he's found this old
Paul
hearth and
Galati.
everything.
Yeah.
Paul Galati,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, so we would, I mean, anything that we do would start with doing getting it, the property inventory and getting it listed on the state's inventory
the
forms.
park.
And then from there, if it
Another one?
was significant, we would keep
That's
going.
new, isn't it? Oh, it's past the park. Oh.
Probably by
That's-
itself,
Nope,
it's
that
not
one.
eligible for
This one?
listing on the state
Yeah,
register. And
that's a
national
salt
register.
box, right? That's an old building.
Yeah.
You can tell by
I mean, this
the
is
door.
like one of those,
Restored the door.
the
The door was
it's going to the
around
need,
this.
Yeah.
or showing the support
He's
it
been
is
trying to
for
find out more
the
info, and he asked me
historic
to
plaque
find it,
program,
and I went
because then you
through
could
our
like
next
certify
files.
1885.
Right, yeah. Well, that's, yeah, we're still, we need a little more information on.
This whole area is
Start
starting to
talking to
feel
some
like,
vendors
this is where we
to see
need to
what
figure
the-
out the archaeology. This is
Kind
the
of the
oldest
styles and all that. And, you know,
European
something that-
buildings anyway.
Hey,
and
they
also
send an
probably
application
the
to
native
us with the fee,
settlements,
which
too.
covers the cost of the plaque.
So
We approve it or we don't approve it,
archaeology.
and put it on your house.
Yeah.
Nice,
Yeah.
yeah, where it got burned.
Yeah.
All right,
All right,
cool.
thanks for everything.
That
Yeah,
house
thank you
has
all.
been
Do you
documented.
want to talk tomorrow?
And,
Debrief?
I am gonna be at Williston all day,
Okay,
so.
Mill.
maybe next week then.
Yeah.
Right here.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Yeah, I wanted to buy that. The old siren.
Yeah, right at the corner here.
Yeah.
Right.
What are you looking at?
Oh, just
That part of East Street.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the mayor's house.
Yeah.
I mean, the
mill
old
is right-
schoolhouse.
there, right?
The
In
cider
fact,
mill. And
there's-
the house across the street is historic too.
So this is the only, well, yeah, I can't really get to it from there, but that little bit of stonework is the only thing left of the mill, right? Like,
The old cider mill.
yeah. I You
Yeah,
can see it
there's
for a
like
second there.
Back in the
wall.
70s, I wanted to buy that building and make it into a house. But
And
Yeah.
it probably wasn't in very good shape even then.
Well, it wouldn't have been a very good place to get in and out of.
Oh, right on that corner, yeah.
You and Nicole
But it
would
was
be
a really
sharing a driveway.
wonderful
Yeah.
looking building.
That was
Yeah.
pretty much, I had to send you guys the picture
Say again?
of the cider mill.
What about
I
it?
sent you a picture of it.
Did you?
Yeah.
You may have. If it wasn't recently, I've slept
Oh,
since.
God, it wasn't recently.
And the house across the street, it was very historic. It had a lot of addition on it, but
See if I
the
can
main part of the
find
house
this.
Is that the one we have the
keep-
old photograph of that said it was the oldest building in Easthampton at one point?
Across the street from where I lived, yeah.
Yeah, that's that one.
That all press house.
That sounds right.
across the street.
Actually, I have, I might even have it on here. Do you have pictures of that on your site?
I think so, yeah. Sure.
Anyways, to keep things kind of moving along.
So we don't have to approve a demo permit for 2 East Street yet.
Mhm.
2 East Street,
Two,
Oxbow.
that shouldn't be an issue.
I was hoping we could approve it.
It is what
My
it is.
website is all messed up.
Is it?
Yeah, I
Yes, it
need to go,
is.
none of my pictures are showing. I'm gonna have to go see what's going on there.
Yes, the house across from the old cider mill.
Yeah. House across from the old cider mill? The white one? It's yellow now?
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's, I can't think of her name.
Well, it's had all the additions added on.
It was funny, this kind of a sidetrack story, but I was over in Amherst at the old Amherst Ale House. And I heard this guy talking about I hear East Street, and I'm like, wait a second, you talking about Easthampton? He goes, yeah, my aunt lived up there, and I said, I can't think of the last name to save my life right now.
What house?
That house you're talking about. The Quinns live there now. One of his would-be uncles was drowned in 1936 in the river. And so, I said, yeah, my father was there at that. As a matter of fact, he was even mentioned in the newspaper article. He was 11 years old and ran to get help, Then the other brothers came down, and people that lived near. But I found this, I think it's a postcard.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the picture I was talking about. Yeah.
So you can see,
Yeah.
you can see the brick house, Langlois' old house down there,
Where's the brick house?
on the same side as the old house.
You can see it in here? I don't
You
see it.
can barely see it. Yeah, you can
Oh,
see it.
kind of right through there, maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of a neat picture. I saw it going like,
Well,
oh,
and I
used to
assume
live
the
right there.
person standing in the yard is the homeowner,
Probably.
which we would know who that is.
I mean, that's probably what, 1910, somewhere around there.
There's no date on it.
That might even be a little earlier.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah,
Those
but that
postcards
is-
are all within kind of a 20-year time
Yeah,
period.
mostly they were. That's right. Yeah.
All right. Pretty cool picture, huh? You can see a little white. Of course, that house there could actually be Savoy's old house. It's a duplex now, but that was a really old house. It actually had barns going all the way back, and I think it formed a horseshoe with the other house that Paul owns. It was kind of like stables or whatever, who knows?
Huh.
Because I remember, being a kid, there was like foundation, you know, what do you call that? Footings.
Yeah.
Footings
Yeah.
for buildings, you know, that went back in their driveway.
Mhm.
We used to play over there all the time anyways. So, you know, from what I had understood, because there was a garage, there was a barn behind it, there was, you know, stuff on the hill, but I heard there used to be more that connected to that house.
I wonder if there's, because I've always been curious, we've never really pinned down where the fort was, right? We know Fort Hill, but we don't really know the location exactly. We know just generally. And that's in that general area, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it do probably, well,
That's
it's hard to
not
say, you
downtown
know.
anymore.
It's not? Oh,
Downtown ends around where Mike lived.
Yeah,
okay.
well,
Yeah, well, anyway, it's all on the side, but yeah, one of these days, it's one of the things I hope to try to figure out, like pin down, where was the fort? Where were the buildings during the massacre? You know, where did that happen?
yeah, it's, well, this map is down in the engineers. I think you can probably buy a copy online somewhere. This is from, here. 1835 maybe?
Oh, wow.
So it's got some old families on there for sure.
Yeah, because the earliest one this is a little earlier, I think. It's got one on
Hog's
there.
Ladder.
It could be 1785 even. I don't
Hog's Ladder.
really remember.
Bladder.
Hog's
Bladder.
Hog's Bladder, yeah.
I wonder if that means the person's name was Hog, or does that mean where they put the hogs?
Well, it's like a part of the river that kind of got cut off. It just,
Mhm.
you know, basically it's almost
Is this
dry
the
now.
whole map, or is there more to the map?
A little bit.
Oops. Uh-oh. Nope, that's it. Well, there is more that isn't in this picture, it looks
Right.
like, so there's
Right.
more of the map to be had.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's neat. I have not seen that one.
that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
good.
it used to be, well, the engineer has it.
Really?
It used to be in Jim's office when he was down at the water department, so I used to get, you know, to look at it. You know, it's like this. I actually brought it to Northampton once.
I can
We had the
digitize it at the
historical
school. If you want to bring it, I can put it on. I've got a great big,
meeting. He may need you.
I can do big, that's the thing. I can do
You could do
scans of
great
things that are
big
great big. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
I brought it, I think I was with Bob Schwob. We went to Northampton because they had like a Friday night thing. We were in the courthouse and, you know, they had all the historical stuff. So they bring some stuff and, you know,
Oh,
people are
neat.
going to come in. So we were there.
Oh, we should do that again. That would be fun.
We could do like, you know, they have this art walk night
Yeah,
or something
yeah.
like that. You know. But we need stuff to show them.
Yeah, we'll have to plan it.
All right, so
Okay, yeah. getting
demo delay by law. Okay, school use update. Evidently, they like the plan for March development, which keeps the.
Good, yeah. Not the
Did
one
you
that
see
would tear
that?
it down. I did, and there was only one that was going to tear down Maple. I'm like, okay, I'm against that.
And that's the only thing they were gonna touch.
I know, right? It was
I
not
mean,
going to help
why-
anything, and anyway, I think it's just because they
I
needed
kind of
3, right?
read it quickly. I didn't, you know, study it, but it sounds like they were going to somehow keep the gym and the auditorium
That sounds
and,
good to
you know,
me.
for possible
Yeah.
town use.
Yeah,
And we had, I don't know how many apartments, but depending
yeah.
on the list.
No, I thought that was
So
another.
has it been approved or not?
It's going to city council, and it might have already gone, I'm not sure.
Some
it's-
good track, you'd say.
Wasn't
yeah.
Arch the ones that did,
15.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we worked with it before. I think that guy that we worked with mostly is still involved. I think the other guy is still on.
Nice.
So, I mean, it should be on the city council's page with the link to the proposal. If you want to take a look at it. I haven't had a chance.
I looked at the ones that were in it, Gazette. They delineated.
Yeah, yeah. I was, like I said, pleased with 2 of the 3.
Town clock, we already did. Demo delay bylaw, we're tabling. Sign program. we haven't really had any movement on it since, but, I mean, we should get it going. I don't think it's gonna have a lot of moving parts. We need, when I'm talking signs at this point, I'm talking for like a year certified by the Historical Commission that this house was built in 1815 or something like that. And, you know, have basically get what the cost of the sign would be from somebody like Mantis Graphics if they do signs. I think somebody said they do. And basically the fee would cover them making the sign, and they would send an application to us with the check for the cost of the sign, and we approve or disapprove, and, you know, okay, no, this isn't that right, you know, and give them a sign. Or say, no, here's your check back, and, you know, sorry, you know, you're wrong.
I wish we could find out what my house was called when the guy built it as a hotel. But looking back through the records at City Hall in Northampton, there doesn't seem to be any record.
Probably have to look in some newspaper articles.
I was gonna say, the one thing that tipped the scale for me, right? Because so my house was built by John Friel in 1873, and I figured that out in part. I knew it was the Friel home. I knew he was a shoemaker, but I didn't know where the business was. Went to the Forbes Library, going through the old newspapers. They had this little brochure of, it was like a business brochure. It's just like it's just an advertising pamphlet, but it had Friel's shoe and the address, which turned out to be 36 Union. And I went up there and saw the lot was.
Was he still there?
No, he wasn't. But you could tell it had. There was a lot that still indicated the shop.
Yeah.
There was a lot
pretty cool.
that was evident that like it had been a shoe shop.
Up towards the other end.
Right next to the gym. I mean, I might be wrong. Was it 32? Or it's the one
Yeah.
right next to the.
But it's up towards
exercise
the
place.
council on aging.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, somebody had posted it, I think it's in the 1935 yearbook with the 150th anniversary, I guess that was. Guy walking down the street, and he's talking to somebody, there's a car pulled up next to him, he's kind of looking at them or talking to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, the sidewalk looks really wide, so everybody online is going, oh, that's on Main Street. But if you look in the distance, there's like a brick building here, which kind of throws you off too.
Yeah.
But there's railroad crossing signs. So I'm looking at it, I'm going, it also has a sign like by its head that says 87, and what's the word for somebody that makes hats? Milliner?
Milliner.
With an arrow.
Aha.
So I looked at the old fire maps, and sure enough, 87 Union Street, there was somebody there's a milliner there, and you know, I'm like, no, it's not. You know, number one, the railroad track. Of course, the railroad crossing signs weren't like this in the old days.
Right.
They were triangular.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, okay, the building over here is now a parking lot because that's where Family Dollar is and all that. You know, it was pretty cool. It's really neat to be able to take a picture and put it to like, this is where this was,
Right,
you know?
right, yeah.
I can go stand in the spot that guy was standing on
Yes,
pretty much, you know?
yeah.
Even though, when you look down, you know, you can't see the pond, it's a little too far away.
Yeah. Well, in the lens, because I did that back when we were doing the master plan. I did some matched shots to the old photographs.
Yeah.
And especially like downtown, the building hasn't changed much at all. But it takes a little bit of trick, not so much just to find the right spot and the right height, but also the lens of the camera.
Right, yeah.
Right.
You gotta kind of
Makes a
match
big
it. Yeah, it'll distort or show more or
Well, like I
less.
said, you're looking at it, you're going like, I mean, it's a super wide sidewalk,
Yeah.
and there's not that many in town. But then again, when you go down there, that's pretty wide, you know? And plus, the street was probably narrower, so there might have even been a little more out to the street, you know? And, this was pretty cool.
Yeah, I love the old photos. It's like time travel.
It's kind of like the house that was behind buildings here on Cottage Street. Where, when I'm looking at it, it says, you know, it was, what's his name, Hines, photographer, famous guy there. What's his name, Lewis Hines. Well, got a picture of, you know, the kids playing at the Hobbles on Cottage Street, by the river on Cottage Street. River on Cottage? I think I shared all this with everybody. But, you know, it took me, I was sitting there one night, you know, during the pandemic, after one of the meetings, and I
Yeah.
started going through all the maps, and I'm looking, this house has got to be somewhere on Orchard or something, and then I'm looking, and now it's basically where like Whiting Electric is in that area.
Whiteley?
There was there was a house there and another house next to it, and basically across from the house, there probably just like a driveway, of course, really have cars back then. And there was just a courtyard with, you know, for stables and whatnot, and the kids were playing in there. And the building that burnt down is, you can see that where the kids are playing, that building was there, and the second floor and everything.
Yeah.
Where Tom Newton's mother was born in that building.
Tom Newton.
Yeah, he had like a yearbook, and I was born on the second floor of this building. It's not written on there. But it was just like, I started, of course, the fire maps show porches and how many stories it is, what material it is. So you start looking, and then and they have dimensions. There's matches. You know, it's got the right number of, you know, stairs are over here. You can see them, you know, and you match it all up.
Fire, what did you say they are? They're fire
The
maps?
Sanford fire maps,
That's interesting.
Library of Congress.
I had another question from someone today, wanting to know if all of the glass negatives are still at the Historic Society that Tom LaBelle gave to the Historic Society, the Keene negatives.
If we have those negatives, I could digitize those, and they'll be really
Yeah,
beautiful.
but did she sell them?
I don't know, but it reminds me, because of the website, I got somebody not too long ago, a few weeks back, who was also asking, like, how do I get into the society, the historical society?
Well, this was the daughter of the person who gave the negatives to the society.
We gotta figure out what's going on over there.
Yeah, something else came up with that, and I'm like, or a guy was looking at, where can I leave these materials? It was like old rubber thread stuff and whatnot. I'm like, I can't tell you anything. I have no idea.
Who we need to ask is David Boyle.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he was on their committee,
Yeah?
but we need to find out what's going on because she's worried that the negatives have been sold, all these glass negatives,
Oh, yeah.
and they were, you know, donated. He owned the camera shop for many years, and he had all of the negatives that Keene was about.
Yeah, very well known.
Gave them to the Historic
I
Society.
hope we have them.
She and I are gonna go some Monday when they're all get in.
When do they start being open on Monday?
Aren't they anymore?
Let me know. Let me know what you find out.
Anyways, next meeting. What would that be?
Hang on, we'll get there.
I'm getting my surgery done for a while, so.
Surgery?
That'll be it.
You're having surgery?
I'm getting a new hip.
Congratulations.
Do you wanna ask me anything about it? I've had experience with dealing with 4 people who do replacements. Not me.
It'd be May 17th.
17th?
Yeah.
Oh, Wednesday. Wouldn't it
Oh,
be the
wait.
10th?
Yeah, Wednesday, right? Yeah, wouldn't it? Oh, okay, the 10th, sorry.
Yeah, second Wednesday.
Gotcha.
You know, we did the last meeting a week ahead because of that conflict. It seemed like we haven't met in months. I was, you know, getting everything, I haven't seen these people in how long.
So when's your hip replacement?
I was supposed to have it done next Wednesday.
And
Put it off.
till?
September 29th. You know, I mean, it was kind of like,
I've gone through 2 with Walter, 1 through one friend,
if you guys want to,
another friend.
Should we call the meeting so that we're not recording all of this?
Sure. Okay. Was it off?
Nope. Oh, I move we adjourn the meeting. Favor? Aye.
Okay.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.